Hi, I welcome you all to another lecture in anthropology. Hope you all are doing good. Let us begin a new chapter today. It is unit 5.3. Unit 5.3 in paper 2 anthropology, where we shall be discussing about great tradition, little tradition, universalization, parochialization, and if time permits, we shall also discuss sacred complex. Unit 5.3 Interplay of great tradition and little tradition. Tradition. What is tradition? Tradition are the customs and the beliefs, the rituals which have been followed since a very long time. So, traditions, you can recall many traditions which you have been following in your day-to-day life, isn't it? So, saying namaste is a tradition, respecting elders is a tradition, greeting people, treating the guests in a respectful manner when they visit your home, that is a tradition, isn't it? So there are various traditions: wearing traditional clothes, wearing bindi, wearing salwar, wearing a sari, all these are traditions. Lighting a lamp at home, isn't it? It is a ritual in many Indian households even today. If you see, even though there are so many modern lights which are very fancy and which are very bright and give a single light is capable of lighting up the entire home. And nowadays we do not even have that. We do not even have to take the pains to go and switch on the light. You can just ask Alexa or Google to switch on the light, and automatically it will switch on the light and it will choose the colors also according to our mood. We can ask for whether we need a warm color or a cool color or whatever, depending on our mood, whether it is a night or a daytime. So everything, it is very automatic nowadays. But still, if you see now also in many traditional families, they make it a point that early morning after taking bath and doing their rituals, they light the lamp in the puja hall. Similarly, in many households, you can find that evening around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, it is a tradition and compulsorily they follow in many households. They go to usually it is the ladies of the household. So the lady of the home, she will clean the entire house by evening. She will make it neat and clean, and she will go and light the lamp in the puja hall. So that has a lot of traditional values and it has a lot of significance also. So it is believed that lighting a lamp in the evening time when the house is going to become dark brings in positive energy into the house. That is why if you see, there are many occasions, right? So even while opening a new showroom or starting a new office or starting any auspicious event or an occasion, isn't it? It is not just marriage and other rituals and other ceremonies which we conduct at home. Even in offices also you can see, right? Not just during Diwali, during other times also, whenever you are going to inaugurate a showroom or you're going to open a new office or whatever, any auspicious occasions, it is always begun by lighting a lamp. So it signifies positive energy, that it is going to light up the entire place and it goes to bring positivity to that place, isn't it? That is the significance of lighting a lamp even at home. Even I do that very often when I am at my home. So I light a lamp whenever I'm at home during evening time. I make it a point by around 5 or 5:30 or maximum 6 o'clock. I light the lamp. It's not just a lamp. Even lighting a candle or putting on all the lights in the house, that brings a lot of positive energy. Otherwise, say suppose somebody is going to visit your house, or even you are going to go back to your house and your house is dark and empty. Does it feel good? Does it feel welcoming to anyone? No, not really, isn't it? Whereas a house which is well lit and it there's a lamp or a candle that is glowing, it brings lot of soothing and comfort, soothing relaxation and all these things. And probably that is also the reason why they light so many candles in spas and all. Don't they have enough money to go buy the modern LED lights and light up the entire room? That is not the case. You can see even in modern spas also, there are many places where they make it cozy by lighting lot of lamps, and now we have aromatic candles and so much, isn't it? So the traditions are the customs and the beliefs which we have been following since a very long time. And it is not that all of the traditions have a significant value. There are many traditions which have become redundant and which we do not use anymore. But there are some traditions which we still hold on, like our lighting of the lamp or the lighting of the diya or the candle, because even though we have all this modern lights and all, still it gives us some kind of comfort. It gives us some kind of happiness to see that when we light a house, our house becomes well lit and bright, and we believe that it brings in positive energy. Right? So that is what we do during Diwali also. So now in another 1 month or so, probably we'll have Diwali and fine. So what is traditions? What are great traditions and what are little traditions? Is there anything, is it based on the size or the quantity or the quality on which we classify what is a great tradition and what is a little tradition? See, it's nothing like that. The concept of great tradition and little tradition was first used by Robert Redfield in the study of his Mexican communities. So there exactly he did not give the term great tradition and little tradition. Instead he used folk culture and urban culture. Okay, I will be explaining that shortly now. So even before we begin this topic of discussing what is a great tradition, what is little tradition, what is universalization, parochialization, since Robert Redfield has this concept of great tradition and little tradition has been derived based on the studies of Robert Redfield, let me just give you a brief introduction about the great anthropologist Robert Redfield. Robert Redfield. Robert Redfield is a great Indian anthropologist, not Indian anthropologist per se, he is not an Indian. However, when we are studying Indian anthropology, we'll be considering most of the anthropologists who have contributed to the Indian anthropology studies, irrespective of their nationality. We will be considering them as Indian anthropologists. Okay, let us keep that aside for now. We shall discuss about that when we are discussing about the contributions of Indian anthropologists. Now let us know a little bit about who is Robert Redfield. The most fascinating thing, if I have to tell you about anthropologists, is that you can find that many of the anthropologists, they wouldn't have voluntarily chosen anthropology as their field of study. So they would have started off with some other subject, then gradually probably they would have come in contact with different cultures or the tribal populations, and then they get involved, they get so much interested in study of these tribal populations, their culture and all this, that they give up their study, that is a degree or whatever job they were doing, and they start pursuing anthropology, and they take up anthropology as their career. So that is such a great thing about anthropology. Whoever studies anthropology, irrespective of whether they are preparing for an exam or just casually, it drags them, it pulls them towards that. And definitely by the end of this course, even you will understand what I am trying to tell you. So now you have chosen anthropology for scoring better marks in UPSC examination, fine. That is the motive behind you choosing anthropology optional. But once you start reading this, you will become so interested that I know many of my students itself have gone ahead and done MA degrees or other degrees in anthropology, and even I'm also pursuing one degree in anthropology. So anthropology is such a subject which attracts everyone towards itself. Fine. So Robert Redfield was a person who finished his schooling. Then after schooling he went on to study law. But then he also after studying law, somewhat he got bored of law, and he went on to study biology. He also worked in his father's law firm for some time. Then he also worked as an ambulance driver for the French army. So after all this, he did not feel interested in any of this, neither working as an ambulance driver or continuing in his father's law firm or studying biology. So once what happened was he just went to Mexico. He visited Mexico, and there he got very much impressed by the Mexican culture. He was so attracted to Mexican culture that he wanted to take up the revival of Mexican culture. Then he came back to America, then he started studying anthropology, and again he went back to Mexico and did a lot of studies in Mexico, and he also took a lot of efforts for the revival of Mexican culture. So as part of his study, he gave various concepts like the folk-urban continuum, okay, and various important books and noteworthy concepts which he has given is Tepoztlan in 1930, Tepoztlan, a Mexican village. That is one important work of Robert Redfield. Then the folk culture of Yucatan. That is also an important work of Robert Redfield. Then further, the little community which he contributed in 1955, and also in 1956, the peasant society and culture. So these are few noteworthy contributions of Robert Redfield. Okay, so now just that you got a brief introduction about who Robert Redfield is, what are his contributions. Let us begin with what is this great tradition, what is this little tradition, how are they related, how are they impacting our lives. Okay, let's discuss all of this now. The concept of great tradition and little tradition was first used by Robert Redfield in the study of Mexican communities in his book Peasant Society and Culture. The concept of great tradition and little tradition. I'll just write it as GT and LT. The concept of great tradition and little tradition was given by Robert Redfield in his book Peasant Society and Culture. When Robert Redfield went to study the Mexican communities, he first used the concept of great tradition and little tradition in his book Peasant Society and Culture, and then this concept was applied to the Indian context. Okay, Robert Redfield did not come to India and study and give the concept of great tradition and little tradition. He gave these concepts while studying the Mexican communities in his book Peasant Society and Culture. Later, this concept of Robert Redfield was applied to the Indian context by Milton Singer and McKim Marriott. Milton Singer and McKim Marriott. The concept of great tradition and little tradition was given by Robert Redfield when he studied the Mexican communities, and he gave this concept in his book Peasant Society and Culture, and later this concept was applied to the Indian context by Milton Singer and McKim Marriott. What are great traditions? So I already told you what traditions mean, right? What are great traditions and what are little traditions? Great traditions are the traditions which have been mentioned in the original religious texts, say Mahabharata or the Ramayana or any of these religious texts. You can find the traditions which have been mentioned in these are considered as great traditions, and then they have a wide reach or a wide range, that is, they have a national character. You can find that great traditions have been followed throughout the length and breadth of the country. So I can give you the example of worshipping of Lord Shiva. So you can find right from Manasa Gangotri, isn't it? Manasa Gangotri is in China. However, even you can see after Rishikesh, there is Kedarnath, Badrinath, okay, as you move up Himalayas. So there also it is worship of Lord Shiva, isn't it? The Linga. So right from there up to the southmost region of India, and then from east to west. So throughout the length and breadth of the country, you can find people celebrating certain festivals like worshipping of Lord Shiva, Okay, Dasara celebrations, which is going to happen now. Shortly, we are having Dasara festival, isn't it? So you can find these are the traditions which have been mentioned in religious texts, and these have been followed by people throughout the length and breadth of the country. That is, they have a national character, isn't it? Yes or no? They have a national character because people across the country practice these traditions. And then these great traditions are very clear cut. They are unambiguous. Okay, there's no confusion. They are not mere superstitions. They are clear cut and they're based on logic. What do you mean by ambiguous? Ambiguous means there is a confusion whether it is this or that. That mostly happens when when we are seated in our UPSC prelims examination, isn't it? So out of the four choices, you know for sure that it is not A and C, and out of B and D, both of them seem to be the right one. Then there's so much of ambiguity. You feel like, okay, this is 80% right, but this is also 85% right. So this, so always this happens, isn't it? That is what we mean by ambiguous. That is, sometimes there can be two right answers for the same question, isn't it? So these great traditions are clear cut and they are rituals which have been mentioned in the religious texts, and they also have a national character. That is, they have been practiced by people throughout the length and breadth of the country, and they are unambiguous and they are related with elite thinking. That is, the people belonging to urban areas and the elite people of the country, they celebrate these festivals and these traditions are associated with elite thinking. This is what we mean by great tradition, and they have been mentioned in the religious texts. They have been written in the religious texts. Okay, this is what we mean by great tradition. So you can see Dasara festival and even the worship of Lord Shiva and many other festivals. You know, worshipping of Lord Ganesh. Recently we had Ganesh festival, Ganesh Chaturthi, isn't it? So even Ganesh Chaturthi, you can find it has been worshipped by people throughout the country. So like this, there are various traditions which have been practiced throughout the country, and they have been mentioned explicitly in the religious texts, and they also have a national character. They are unambiguous, they are clear cut, and they are associated with elite thinking. This is what we call it as great tradition. What do we mean by little tradition? See, what the people of great tradition think is that the little traditions are mere superstitions. Okay, the little traditions have not been mentioned in any religious text, or they have not, you know, they are just ambiguous, they are superstitious, they have been not mentioned in any of the religious texts, and you can find that little traditions are followed by very few people here and there. Okay, these are little traditions, and the great tradition people consider the little tradition as superstitions, and they are just associated with the folk and the rural people, and they are also not based on any logic or rationality. These are irrational. That is what the great tradition people think about little tradition. So if I have to give you the example of a little tradition, you can find when whichever part of the country you are living, you can find there are certain festivals or certain traditions which are unique only to few communities or a very small part of the place which we are living, whereas it is not having a national character. It is not being followed throughout the major population of the country, isn't it? One such example I can give you from Tamil Nadu. This is, how many of you all know about this? This is the cheek and tongue piercing ceremony. So there is one festival in around April month, if I am not wrong. So there is a festival which is exclusively celebrated by the people of Tamil Nadu, during which they worship Lord Subramanya. Lord Subramanya. Lord Subramanya is elder brother of Lord Ganesh, right? And it is not just in Tamil Nadu. You can find this festival being celebrated, you know, in other parts of the country where this Lord Subramanya temple is there, and even in Malaysia, Singapore, and other places where the Tamil population are present in large numbers. So what they do is there is a festival where during which the devotees wish for something. this is a common practice, isn't it? We go to God, we ask for God to make us, we ask for something. We say, okay, I have to clear this exam, or I have to finish constructing my house, or give me some better opportunities, I have to succeed in business, or my health problems should get cured. Whatever wishes you have, isn't it? All of us have wishes. Every single second we have wishes. So we go to God, we pray for that, and we promise God that, or we, it is like a promise only, but it is a direct promise between us and the God. So we tell God that if this, whatever I am wishing for, if it becomes true, then I will do something for you. Like usually you can witness this in Tirupati, right? Many people go pray to Lord Venkateshwara in Tirupati, and once their wishes get fulfilled, again they will go to the temple and offer their hairs, right? They will shave off their head, they will offer their hairs to the God. And similarly, in many other temples, many other rituals have been followed like that. So in some temples you can find people burning camphor on their palm and doing aarti, and sometimes they will pray to God saying that I will break some 100 coconuts if something comes true. Suppose you pray that you have to get a job, and after you get a job you will go and break some 100 coconuts for the in the temple. Or sometimes even people pray that I will offer food for so many people, or I will put so much of donation into the temple's hundi. So like that, many many things they will many things they will wish for, they will ask God, and once it becomes true, they will do that, whatever they have promised to God, they will do that. So similarly, what happens is, many these people would have gone to Lord Subramania temple, and they will wish for something, and they will do this. So they will the priest of the temple, he will pierce a trishul or a needle kind of thing from one end of the cheek to the other. Sometimes they pierce it in their tongue like this. Okay, you must have seen that also. And sometimes they put hooks on their back. So these are very common practices, at least if in South Indian movies, if you have watched any of the Tamil movies, if you have watched in South India, South Indian Tamil movies, definitely, in any movies with village stories and all, definitely one or two scenes like this you would have definitely come across. So they put hooks on the back, iron hooks, which they put to the skin, they cling on to the skin, and that hook will be connected to a chain, which will be connected to a small chariot kind of, not a huge chariot, a small mandir kind of thing, inside which they would have kept the God's image, sorry, not image, God's idol. So that person with his back, he will pull that entire, like this it will be. I'll just show you. So here the person will, so suppose this is his back, so some things will be some chain will be clinging onto this, and there will be a small mandir kind of, okay, and here they would have placed the idol of God, and this person will pull that, okay, it will be fixed with wheels. So they will this person, as part of the whatever he has wished for, whatever he prayed to God, so he will pull that entirely, those hooks will be pierced into his back, the skin in the back, and he will pull this for one round throughout the entire temple, or whatever place that have to do, and they will come back. So like this, many people, even if you can witness this even in Delhi. So there is one Lord Subramania temple in Delhi, in I just forgot the name of the area where it is, but even I have visited that temple few times. Even there you can witness this. So once in a year they conduct this ritual, where many people from Delhi also go and participate. At least, even if they don't pierce the cheeks and tongue, they at least go to see how people do this ritual. So there you can find many people, at least few 40-50 members at least, who would have done all this piercing, wishing for something, and they will go around the prominent one or two streets and around the temple complex with that, and then they'll come do puja to God, and then finally they will remove that. Okay, so this is a little tradition which has been followed in Tamil Nadu and in other regions where there is adequate or enough number of Tamil people population. So then again, I can give you one more example of little tradition, Jallikattu. I'm sure all of you know about the controversy which happened in Jallikattu, isn't it? Recently, whether Jallikattu should be banned or not. So the people who wear animal rights, not animal rights, protection for PETA and all that. So people who wear, who fight for the protection of animals, they were asking for the government to cancel this tradition of Jallikattu. So what is Jallikattu? Jallikattu means after the Pongal, the main Pongal day. So we all know there's a festival called as Pongal, right? Which is celebrated in January month. So usually around January 14th or 15th this Pongal will come. In other parts of the country we celebrate it maximum for 1 or 2 days, whereas in Tamil Nadu you can find that this Pongal festival is celebrated for 5 days. So for entire 5 days all the schools, colleges will be shut down. They have a government holiday for 5 days. So first date is Bogi Pongal, then there are different names for each of these days, Bogi, Kanu, Mattu Pongal and all these things. So after, on the last day of Pongal, usually in the southern districts of Tamil Nadu like Madurai, all these regions, they will conduct a Jallikattu, where all the mighty strong men, young men belonging to that region, they will come and contest in that. And what they have to do is they have to go and control the bull. Okay, those bulls have been traditionally kept by certain families since several generation after generation. Certain families have this tradition of maintaining the bulls in a very good condition and letting them participate in this Jallikattu. So these young men who would have also practiced since a long time to participate in this Jallikattu. You and I, without any practice, if we go and stand in front of the bull, it will stamp over us, it will kill, and it will move on coolly without a care in the world. Okay, so even these people who participate in that Jallikattu also, there is also certain skills which they acquire. They build their body muscles properly, and they, on that particular day, they go and they show their manliness by controlling the bull. And finally, whoever manages to control the bull will be awarded prizes, cash prize, and other things also. So usually you can see this Jallikattu very prominently happening in southern Tamil Nadu districts like Madurai, Tirunelveli, and all these regions. So this is a little tradition. You cannot see this Jallikattu happening in any other, in Punjab or Rajasthan or Haryana, isn't it? So like that, because I am belonging, I am much aware of the traditions which are celebrated in South India, I am able to tell you these. So similarly, if you see around you in your regions, wherever you are living, you can also find various traditions, isn't it? Say the, in each region you can find various traditions which are unique to that region only. Okay, you can also share those traditions with me which are unique to your region. Fine. So did you understand what is the meaning of great tradition and what is little tradition? The great traditions are the traditions which have been mentioned in original religious epics and religious texts. They have a wide reach, that is, they have a national character, and they are clear cut. Okay, they are followed throughout the country, and they are associated with the elite people, with the elite population. Okay, whereas the little traditions are the traditions of the folk people, the rural people. They have not been mentioned in any religious text, but then if they have not been mentioned in any religious text, how was it transmitted from generation to generation? By word of mouth, isn't it? Not all the knowledge which we get is from the text or the religious text which we have read, isn't it? So we go to school, we study ABCD, we study physics, chemistry, maths, all these things. But there are various other things which we learn by seeing, by interacting with people, by learning from your parents, from your grandparents. Your grandparents would have told you so many, stories and so many things about, especially about your culture, your traditions, which are particular to your family, to your community, isn't it? So it is these little traditions which are not been mentioned in any religious text, but instead they have been transmitted from generation to generation through word of mouth, isn't it? And they are followed mostly by the folk and the rural people. And the people who follow the great tradition consider these little traditions as unorganized. They are just superstitious. They are just beliefs without any rationality. So what do we mean by rationality? Rationality means something which is logical, isn't it? Which is based on data and facts. That is what we mean by rationality. So here the elite people, or the people who follow the great traditions, consider the little traditions as mere superstitions and beliefs. They are not having any organized, it is not properly organized, or it does not have any rationality in them. That is what the elite people think about the little traditions. So now you might think, are the great traditions and little traditions limited only to Hindu religion, or do we have great tradition and little tradition in other religions also? Yes, you can find great tradition and little tradition in Islam, Christianity, and also. See, how many of you know about this church in coastal Tamil Nadu? There's a very famous church in coastal Tamil Nadu. It is called Velankani Church. Right? So at least you must have got to know about this church when you read news about tsunami. So when tsunami happened, there were a lot number of people who had gathered in this church. It was during December, I think it happened on December 24th or 26th, I think. So I think one day prior or after to Christmas, tsunami happened, and you can find that during this time of the year, that is during December, Christmas time up to New Year time, there are large number of crowds and crowds of people who visit this Velankani church, because it is very famous throughout the country, and many people, not just from Christianity, or not just people belonging to Christian community, Christian religion, even other people, Hindus and others also visit this Velankani church very often. Okay, so do you know anything about why this church is so famous and so many people visit this church over here? So there's a story behind this church, how this church, made its, it became so famous, and so many people throughout the country visit this church. So during the 16th century, what happened was, the Portuguese, who were ardent worshippers, they were ardent devotees of Mother Mary, were sailing through Bay of Bengal. Their ship was on a voyage towards Sri Lanka. So they were traveling all the way from Portugal to Sri Lanka, and during their travel to Sri Lanka here in the Bay of Bengal, when their ship was traveling here, so here it is Sri Lanka, right? So they had to reach Sri Lanka. So this Portuguese ship was traveling here, and suddenly what happened was, there was very violent storms, huge rain, storms, and the ship started fluctuating so much, and everybody, all the sailors in the ship believed that this is going to be the last day of their life. There was severe thunderstorms, violent waters, and water started gushing in, and the ship was about to wreck and reach finally collapse. So at this time, these Portugal sailors, they were basically ardent devotees of Mother Mary. They believed in Mother Mary and worshipped her a very lot. So what these people did is, when they could not escape from the storm, and they believed that this is going to be the last day of their life and they are all going to get killed in the sea and die. So they, being worshippers of Mother Mary, they just fell on their knees in the ship and they started praying to Mother Mary. They said, Mother Mary, please save us, save our ship, and help us land on some shore. Somewhere we need to find some land, and we need to move to safety. We do not want to die today. Please, wherever you can, you just land us to safety, and wherever our ship moves towards and lands to safety, in that place we will construct a church for you. So when all the sailors together, they fell on their knees in the ship and they started worshipping Mother Mary, asking her to save them. After some time, the waters, the storm subsided, it became less violent, and certain amount of it became calm. The seas became calm from the earlier original rough condition. It became certainly calm, and they managed to move towards the coast of Tamil Nadu and land their ship over there. So these people, after landing the ship, they just stepped down onto the land and they thanked Mother Mary a lot. And again, the place where they landed, they built this church called as Velankani Church. Okay, so that is the background of this Velankani Church. So in this church, you can find that many people, at least more than 60 to 70% or 60 to 75% of the members who visit this church every year are Hindus. Okay, you know that commonly Christians visit the churches a lot, but here you can find that more than 60 or 70% of the devotees who visit this church are Hindus. So this Velankani church is very powerful, and people believe that whatever problems they have, whatever worries they have, if they go and are, with wholeheartedly, if they worship Mother Mary, and they believe that she will resolve their issues, and they surrender to her, then all their problems will get resolved. There is a very, very huge faith. Many people throughout the country believe this, and that is why they visit Velankani church in huge numbers every year. So here you can find that even though Christians also visit this church, around 60 to 75% of the people who visit are Hindus. So you can find what these people will do is, just like how they do puja in temple, similarly they do puja in the church also. So they will offer flowers, fruits, they will light incense sticks, they will light camphor, okay, and they will blow this Nadaswaram. How many of you know what is Nadaswaram? So Nadaswaram is a popular musical instrument. Okay, it is just like a trumpet. Not a trumpet, I cannot say it a trumpet. So if at least if any of you have visited South Indian weddings, in the wedding ceremony, definitely you can find at least a team of some 5 to 7 members sitting and playing this Nadaswaram during the time when they tie the Mangal Sutra. So the proper marriage function is there, right? Not during this reception, during the marriage. I'll try to show you the picture of Nadaswaram. Yeah, see this? Yeah, so here you can see these people. Yeah, can you see this? This person, he's holding a trumpet kind of musical instrument, and he's blowing into it. So this is the regular tabla, not tabla, whatever, I'm not sure exactly what the name of this. So this you can find very common in most of the temples in southern India, and also during marriage function, whenever there's a proper typical South Indian marriage. So you can find a team of some 5 to 10 members holding this Nadaswaram and this tabla, not tabla, this is not tabla, tabla is we do this way, right? So it's not tabla, I'm not sure what is the name of this. So they will have these musical instruments and they will play this at the time of the marriage. So this is a typical Hindu tradition. Okay, whereas you can find Hindus going to Velankani church and doing all this over there. So they will be blowing the Nadaswaram, and they will offer flowers, fruits, they will light camphor sticks. Okay, they will also light the incense sticks. Usually in churches what they will do is, even when we go to churches, we buy candles, right? We buy candles and we go light it and we sit and pray for some time and we come back. Even in Bangalore, there's a place called as Vasant Nagar, not Vasant Nagar. No, there's one more place where there is Mother Mary Church. and it is very, very famous. Again, I forgot the name of that church. Just a minute. Yeah, Infant Jesus Church. Yeah, there's Infant Jesus Church in Bangalore. That is also very famous. So you can find not just Christians, but also other people belonging to other religions also. They go to this church often and offer their prayers. Okay, so in this Velankani church, you can find these are the little traditions. Okay, it is not just the Christians who go to this church in huge numbers, but Hindus who go to this church, and they also conduct a huge festival called as September Festival. In this church, there is a festival called as September Festival. So you can find all these events where Hindus flock the church and they offer all this, they start doing all these traditions of offering camphor and fruits and flowers and playing Nadaswaram. All these events you can witness very easily during this September Festival. So it is the feast of the birth of Mother Mary. So it is called as September Festival. It begins on September 8th and it continues for one full week. Okay, so these are various great traditions in other religion like Christianity. Similarly, you can find one more little tradition in Islam also. Like there is a dargah called as Nagore Dargah. Nagore, it's not Nagore, it's Nagore. Okay, Nagore Dargah. You all know what is Dargah, right? Dargah means a mosque, right? So there is one Nagore Dargah in again coastal Tamil Nadu. Here also it is very famous Dargah, and many times you can find that people, villagers and other people belonging to rural background who, in rural areas, mental problems means or any, psychological disturbances, they do not consult a psychiatrist, right? At least in urban areas, many people have little bit at least knowledge about this. They know if there is somebody is anxious or they're not behaving properly, they have some mental illness, they will take them to a psychiatrist or a other doctor and they will treat. But in villages and rural areas, if somebody is not behaving properly, if they are mentally disturbed or, they show signs of depression and all, they think that some evil spirits have got into their body and it is it is making them behave like this. So they take them to the nearby priest. They take them to a temple where a priest starts beating them with all those leaves and throwing some powder kind of stuff on them, putting sindoor on their forehead and trying to drive out the evil spirit which has got into their body. So like this, you can find many people going to this Nagore Dargah also. So there they believe that this evil spirits can be warded off and all. Apart from that, you can see Nagore Dargah is being frequented mostly by Hindus in comparison to Muslims. Here also you can see a majority of the people who visit this Dargah are the Hindus. Okay, here again you can find they will go and do the worship of God just like how they worship in Hindu temples. So they will light camphors, they offer flowers, fruits. So all these activities you can find very commonly, just like how whatever activities you can witness in a Hindu temple, you can witness the Hindus going to the Nagore Dargah and giving similar offerings and similar puja to the God in Dargah also. So this is also another good example of little tradition. Fine. So now the little traditions are mostly oral, and the elite people believe that they are just mere superstitions or beliefs of the folk and the rural people. Fine. Did you all understand what is great tradition and what is little tradition? Yes, are we together? Fine. Then Saraswati preferred to call these great traditions as Shastriya traditions. Okay. Then S.C. Dubé in 1965, he expressed the view that Indian cultural realities are too complex to be understood through a bipolar model of great and little tradition. See, now that I gave you few examples for great tradition and few examples for little tradition based on whatever I have witnessed, isn't it? Similarly, you will be witnessing many things in your regions. So you will be confused as to whether they are great traditions or little traditions. Sometimes even you might ask me also. So there is so and so tradition which happens in our place. Say in once in a year, people assemble in this temple, or they assemble over here, and they do these kind of sacrifices, or they do these kind of rituals. Is that being mentioned in the great tradition? Is that being mentioned in any of the religious texts? Or if it is not mentioned, is that a little tradition? So like this, if you see throughout our country, you can in every in every part of the country, be it in any state or district or even rural areas or even tiny villages, there are hundreds and thousands of traditions which have been followed by the people, isn't it? So across generations, from one generation to next generation, they keep following, they keep enriching the traditions, and they keep following it repeatedly. But is it possible for us to entirely say, okay, these are the ones which have been mentioned in the great texts or the religious texts, and that is why they are great traditions, and these traditions are the ones which have nowhere been mentioned, so we can classify these exclusively as little tradition, and there will be some traditions which are in between, right? So our Indian cultural diversity is so enormous that we cannot use a bipolar model and classify all the traditions in our country as either little or great tradition, isn't it? Are you all following what I'm trying to tell you? See, we have so many traditions, hundreds and thousands of tradition in this culturally diverse country. So it is not entirely possible for us to classify every tradition that is existing in our country into either great tradition or little tradition. That is, a bipolar model cannot be successfully used. Got it? So that is why what S.C. Dubé says is, S.C. Dubé. So S.C. Dubé says that, see, how can you classify all the traditions in a country in a bipolar model, saying either they come under the great tradition or they come entirely under the little tradition? That is actually not possible. We have so many different kinds of traditions. So instead of going for a bipolar model or a bipolar view or a bipolar classification of the traditions, what we can do is, instead we can go for a multipolar view. That is, we can classify the traditions into different groups instead of just great tradition and little tradition. So he gave the six-fold classification of the traditions in our country. So the six-fold are the classical tradition, regional tradition, local tradition, Western tradition, emergent national tradition, and subcultural tradition. Okay, so S.C. Dubé said that we cannot entirely classify all the traditions in our country on a bipolar model, saying either they are a great tradition or they belong to little tradition. Instead, let us take a multipolar view, and so he gave the six-fold classification of the traditions of our country into classical tradition, regional tradition, local tradition, Western tradition, emergent national tradition, and subcultural tradition of special group. And do not worry, we need not go too much into depth of each of these traditions, what are these and which traditions exactly come under this category. We need not bother so much. Okay. So far, did you all understand what we mean by great tradition and what is little tradition? So do you think these great and little tradition are influencing each other or not? You can always see that there are influences of one tradition on the other. The elements of greater tradition influence the little tradition and vice versa. Okay, so the greater tradition elements influence the little tradition elements, and the little tradition elements also influence the greater tradition elements. So now you might think that which tradition is which tradition is influencing the other tradition, and is it losing its own traits? Okay, so one thing you have to understand that though great tradition and little tradition are interacting with each other, they do not lose their original traits, but you can find that there is a fusion and interpenetration of tradition which is happening. Fine. So there is greater tradition which is influencing the little tradition. Greater tradition is, or great tradition is influencing the little tradition, and little tradition is also influencing the great tradition. So when great tradition influences little tradition or little tradition influences great tradition, each of them do not lose their characteristics or traits. Instead, there is a fusion of the traditions which is happening. When they are coming together and they are interacting, there is a fusion and interpenetration of traditions which is happening. This is very, very important. Please mark it in your notes. Okay, so there is a constant interaction which is happening between the great tradition and little tradition, and this leads to a fusion and interpenetration of tradition. And you can mostly find that the great tradition has a more influence on the little tradition in comparison to little tradition influencing the greater tradition. Okay, so what happens is the little tradition elements move upwards and they get integrated with the great tradition, and this process is called as universalization. Just give me a minute. Wait. The little tradition elements move towards the great tradition. The upward devolution of the little tradition elements towards the greater tradition elements is called as universalization. So what happens when little tradition elements move towards greater tradition? So as I already told you, little tradition elements are the traditions which have been followed by the rural people, the folk people. They have been followed by very few number of people in some parts of the country. Isn't it? Very few people know about the tradition, only they have been following that. However, they are not very popular throughout the country. They are not followed by people belonging to major part of the country. They have not been mentioned in any religious text. So when this little tradition starts moving towards great tradition, what happens is they get a national character. The many people start following those traditions. Then it gets universalized. Isn't it? That is why this process is called as universalization. The upward devolution of the little tradition elements towards the great tradition is called as universalization. So McKim-Marriott speaks about universalization and parochialization. The carrying forward of the materials already found in a little tradition to become a part of the great tradition is called as universalization. On the other hand, the great tradition is also moving towards little tradition. Great tradition is moving towards the little tradition, and this process is called as parochialization. Okay, the movement of the great tradition towards the little tradition is called as parochialization. The upward devolution of the little tradition towards the great tradition is called universalization, and the downward devolution of great tradition towards little tradition is called parochialization. Did you all understand? If you still didn't understand, we shall discuss that with examples so that you will be able to understand properly. You can, in your examination, you can draw a picture like this, or you can even write like this: the great tradition and little tradition. Great tradition moving towards little tradition is called as parochialization. And the little tradition moving towards great tradition is called universalization. So when the little tradition, which has a very limited reach, which are followed by very few people, when it moves towards the great tradition, it gets a wider audience, wider reach. Many people start following this practice and it becomes more and more popular. That is why it becomes universalized. Hence this process is called as universalization. So when great tradition starts moving towards the little tradition, it starts losing its value, and it doesn't lose its value as such. So when great tradition starts moving towards the little tradition, it goes to the people like urban people of folk and rural culture also. And in this way it gets parochialized. See, it does not lose its value. That was wrong, which by mistake I said that. So from great tradition, the great tradition moving towards little tradition is called as parochialization, because it is getting parochialized. So let me give you examples for universalization, parochialization, so that you will be able to understand properly. First, we shall discuss examples for parochialization. First example here is Govardhan Puja. Govardhan. What is the meaning of Govardhan? Govardhan literally means possessor of cows. Okay. The possessor of cows. Who is possessor of cows? Lord Krishna, isn't it? If you all have visited ISKCON temple, anywhere, ISKCON temple, we have one here in Bangalore, we have one in Mathura, we have ISKCON other, I don't know where else we have. So if you have visited ISKCON temple frequently, you would have noticed many paintings there with Lord Krishna around a herd of cows, and then Lord Krishna lifting the Govardhan Giri. So how many of you know about the story of Lord Krishna lifting the Govardhan Giri in his finger? Right? So what exactly happened was, there was this. So the story of the Govardhan Puja has been mentioned in Bhagavata Purana. So there was a kingdom who was ruled by a ruler called as Braj. There was this, the ruler's name was, the kingdom's name was Braj. Okay, the kingdom's name was Braj, and the ruler was Nanda Maharaj. Okay, so there was a kingdom of Braj which was ruled by the ruler Nanda Maharaj, and once what happened was, it was a ritual. So what all the elders of this village used to do was, of this kingdom, not the village, so all the elder members of this kingdom, once in a year they would assemble together, and they would worship Lord Indra. So now we were discussing about the examples for parochialization, isn't it? Example for